I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Currents. Tonight, the latest developments in a story that is chilling the world. Al-Qaeda is threatening to kill hundreds of Christians and infidels they are holding hostage in Algeria. That frightening news coming from Reuters after speaking with an Algerian man who escaped from the terrorists. Yesterday, Al-Qaeda raided this natural gas plant in the middle of the Algerian desert. The escaped hostage says they had good inside knowledge of the facility's layout. This photograph from Euronews allegedly shows some of the hostages being guarded by the terrorists. News reports and the former hostage are confirming that dozens of foreign nationals, along with hundreds of Algerians, are captive. The State Department confirms Americans are being held. Now, earlier today, the Algerian military launched a rescue operation at the plant. Incomplete and sometimes contradictory reports from the scene are that the mission has not gone well. Reportedly, it is still underway at this hour. Many are said to be dead, both hostages and terrorists. British Prime Minister David Cameron, confirming British nationals are being held, is warning his nation to prepare for, quote, very difficult news. Before the raid, Euronews made contact with another hostage inside the plant. He is being held at one of several hostage locations.
They attacked the two sites at the same time and made their way inside. When it was daylight, they gathered everyone together. For the moment, I'm the only French person on this site. I don't know if there are any others. I'm with some British, Japanese, Norwegians, Filipinos and Malaysians. Above all, please tell everyone we've been treated well and that they are asking for the Algerian army not to intervene, otherwise they'll blow us up.
The Algerian military action came despite British pleas to wait for better coordination. According to the freed hostage, the Al-Qaeda terrorists claim they are acting in retaliation for France's invasion of Mali. That operation, also still underway tonight, was launched this weekend to prevent Al-Qaeda from overrunning the African country. French President François Hollande agrees that there is a link.
Tout cela n'est pas sans lien.
These events are not unconnected to the operation that we in France are undertaking, as well as all the African countries and all those who are participating in what we call the MISMA, or International Mission to Support Mali, whose aim is for Mali to regain its territorial integrity as soon as possible.
Mr. Hollande has already announced that he is adding troops to the French fighting force now in Mali. Adding to the scene inside the gas plant, the former hostage says that from the very start, the terrorists said they would not hurt Muslims. They were only interested in Christians and infidels. We will kill them, they promised. Unusual silence tonight from the White House. The president's spokesman says they're waiting for clarification from Algeria. Inside Mali, meantime, an official of the Catholic Church is reporting the French military invasion has, quote, greatly comforted the country's people. French fighter jets and hundreds of commandos seen here in Chad before launching attacks have taken the fight to the terrorists. The Catholic official, Father Edmond Dembele, now tells of hope that the French will beat back Al-Qaeda and prevent their attempts to take over the country. More than 140,000 refugees have fled Mali. The country's bishops are trying to coordinate relief. The total population is more than 15 million. In Egypt, another frightening story. 7 children and their mother have been sentenced to 15 years in prison for the crime of wanting to convert to Christianity. Even the clerks who helped them fill out the paperwork are going to jail. Human rights advocates blame Egypt's new constitution. The bishops there have repeatedly warned the constitution and its reliance on Sharia law will lead to a new caliphate. A caliphate in Egypt is a prime goal of Al-Qaeda. Mohamed Morsi, the country's president and driving force behind the constitution, is under fire tonight. Disgusting comments he once made are just now coming to light.
Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi under fire for hateful comments he made more than 2 years ago against Zionists and the Israeli government. In a 2010 interview that resurfaced on YouTube, Morsi, then a senior leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, calls Zionists warmongers, descendants of apes and pigs, and calls on Muslim countries to break off ties with Israel.
These people who want nothing but our blood, they want the blood of Muslims and Arabs on this land. Therefore, we must resist them with all avenues of resistance. We must besiege the Zionists wherever they are. None of the Arab or Muslim peoples and regimes should have dealings with them.
Washington was quick to blast Morsi's comments. On a visit to Cairo, Senator McCain and 6 fellow U.S. lawmakers told Morsi how they felt in person.
In our meeting with President Morsi, We voiced our strong disapproval of statements he made a few years ago that have recently surfaced.
President Morsi hasn't backed down from the statements. His spokesman says they were taken out of context from comments not aimed at Jews, but at Israeli aggression against Palestinians. It's necessary to separate Judaism and the Jewish people and the violent practices against the unarmed Palestinians and the assaults on their lives and properties, Morsi's spokesman said. Despite U.S. condemnation and no apparent regret from President Morsi, it doesn't look like Washington is viewing his comments as a game-changing crisis.
We will judge him by what he does. What he has been doing is supporting that peace treaty, continuing to work with us and with Israel on common goals, including in Gaza.
Indeed, in a letter to Shimon Peres last year, Morsi called the Israeli president a great and dear friend. Washington also viewed Morsi as playing a key role in negotiating the current Israeli-Palestinian ceasefire. For now, Washington's view seems to be Morsi's actions speak louder than words he spoke long before he became president. Reza Sayah, CNN, Cairo.
In Pakistan, the case of Rimsha Masih is finally closed. She's a young Christian girl accused of blasphemy. Turns out a local Muslim cleric had tried to set her up and lied that she had destroyed a Quran. Pakistani lower courts ruled in her favor. Now the Supreme Court, Pakistan's highest, has tossed an appeal by the cleric and marked the case closed. Rimsha's lawyer only worries now about the safety of the youngster and her family inside Pakistan. Up next, the great national gun debate and extreme security for the president. Details as Currents continues after the break. Welcome back. We have reported on Governor Andrew Cuomo's push for a radical new law allowing more abortions in New York. Now, the head of one pro-life group says the state would become the late-term abortion capital of the world if Cuomo has his way. His bill would remove almost all the criminal penalties for third trimester abortions that now exist. Cardinal Dolan and the New York State Catholic Conference are urging all citizens to contact the politicians and tell them to vote against the Cuomo abortion bill. Meantime, the governor's new gun control law, signed yesterday, has become part of the great national debate, and voices on both sides are telling their stories.
Are there some sensible steps that we can take to make sure that somebody like the individual in Newtown can't walk into a school and gun down a bunch of children?
One thing we all need to recognize, and that is that what happened in Connecticut was a horrible tragedy. It's inappropriate, however, for politicians to overreact and take actions that are both counterproductive and unconstitutional. And so what we're prepared to do is to ensure that constitutional guarantees are not stripped away because of political overreaction.
We should ban assault weapons and high-capacity gun magazines. There are no valid uses for these weapons off the battlefield.
The problem is you get into a bidding match. You know, somebody says you shouldn't have 100-round magazine. They don't work anyway.
Do you think somebody needs 80, 90, 100?
Well, it depends. If they're at the range, if they're shooting a lot in a lot of the competitions, they do. I don't need one. You might not need one, but we're not everybody. But the fact of the matter is that you get into this, so the president says, well, we don't need 30-round magazine. How about a 10-round magazine? Andrew Cuomo says, well, I can do better than that. I'll make it a 7-round magazine. The fact of the matter is that the kinds of people who do this, particularly the mentally unbalanced, who are the most likely people to do it, shouldn't have any magazine. They shouldn't have any gun.
New York's law is being criticized over a provision requiring health professionals to turn into the state the names of any mentally ill individuals who are deemed dangerous. Another criticism, this time of President Obama. In announcing his gun control plan yesterday, he made no mention of violence found in popular culture or the movie industry. His only reference to anything other than guns, a suggestion that Congress should research the effects of video games on young people. Everyone agrees Mr. Obama faces big opposition in Congress to his proposals. And as we hear now, the opponents are not just Republicans.
President Obama knows the fate of his new gun control agenda depends on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue.
To make a real and lasting difference, Congress too must act. And Congress must act soon.
The president also knows his first hurdle is his own party, persuading many fellow Democrats from conservative pro-gun states to take a big political risk. One of those historically skeptical gun-owning Democrats is Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, but he released a carefully worded statement signaling an open mind. I am committed to ensuring that the Senate will consider legislation that addresses gun violence and other aspects of violence in our society early this year. Another gun-owning Democrat is the Senate Judiciary Chairman, who announced he will hold this year's first congressional hearing on guns.
Spare me symbolic arguments. Let's have a constructive discussion about how better to protect our communities from mass shootings or respecting the fundamental rights guaranteed by our Supreme Court.
Democratic leadership sources tell CNN the president's proposals to renew the assault weapons ban and magazines with more than 10 rounds are unlikely to go anywhere. Sources say the only measure with much of a chance is universal background checks. It was no accident the president mentioned it first.
As many as 40% of all gun purchases are conducted without a background check. That's not safe. That's not smart.
Although Democratic aides caution discussions are just beginning, background check legislation would likely give states financial incentives to report mental health records to a federal database. Currently, only 19 states comply. And make it a prosecutable crime to sell a gun privately without a background check. The president is galvanizing Americans to pressure lawmakers.
Ask your member of Congress if they support universal background checks to keep guns out of the wrong hands. And if they say no, ask them why not.
That question is already going to reluctant Democrats, like North Dakota freshman Senator Heidi Heitkamp. When CNN's Candy Crowley described the president's plans earlier this month, she said this.
I don't think that that proposal necessarily, as you've described it to me, fits the bill for me.
A gun control advocacy group took out this tough ad against Heitkamp, saying, quote, "Shame on you." Democratic leadership sources tell me in order to pass anything, those gun control groups, who are traditionally Democratic allies, are going to have to engage in more of that kind of friendly fire in order to compete with the influence of the NRA and to beat back genuine concerns among many lawmakers about curbing Second Amendment rights. Dana Bash, CNN, Capitol Hill.
Meantime, the rights of others, this time young school children, are causing concern tonight. In Maryland, 2 6-year-old boys have been suspended from school. They were caught playing cops and robbers during recess and using their hands to form imaginary guns. Another Maryland 6-year-old was suspended a couple of weeks ago for the same reason. That youngster's name is Rodney Lynch.
Pointing her fingers like this, and then she did the pow sound, and I just went like that. And then I got sent to the office again.
Well, the school dropped the case against Rodney after his parents complained. Well, there will be a lot of real guns in Washington next week as the president takes the oath for his second term. Security for the inauguration will be extraordinary.
Joe Hagan remembers his first jolt working security in an inauguration. January 2001, just after George W. Bush's swearing in. Hagan's in a motorcade moving with the new president toward the White House.
Turned down Pennsylvania Avenue, and the military aide who was in the right front seat of the car I was riding in turned around and said, "Sir, there's a gas mask under your seat. Get ready to put it on," which was a little startling.
That was to prepare for possible tear gassing of protesters. Later, as Deputy White House Chief of Staff under President Bush, Hagan coordinated security and logistics for big events, summits, secret presidential trips to war zones, inaugurations. As we looked at the buildings President Obama will pass, Hagan said the Secret Service, the lead security agency for the inauguration, will make sure the buildings are clear of potential snipers. Elsewhere, manhole covers will be welded shut. SWAT teams will be deployed all over the city. Plainclothes law enforcement officers mingling in the crowds. Bomb-sniffing dogs. Even teams trained on weapons of mass destruction. And
our dive team, our intelligence analysts will be working around the clock, our hostage negotiators.
That FBI official spoke to us inside the Multi-Agency Communications Center, where security teams will do real-time monitoring of surveillance cameras posted on buildings and roads. They'll also share tips and incident reports. With all the checkpoints, monitoring stations, and other precautions, it's this stage, the parade route here along Pennsylvania Avenue, where the real unknown comes in. It's often along here where the president gets out of his car. That's when the president is most exposed, and the crowds are massive. If he's right in this area and gets out of his car and walks, what's going through your mind at that moment?
Well, what's going through my mind is, you know, having faith in the plan and you know, assuming that the agents are, you know, doing their job.
Hagan says the Secret Service often choreographs where the president will get out of his limo and where he'll get back in, a tightly held secret. When it's all over, a big sigh of relief.
An event of this magnitude takes hundreds, thousands of people to execute it effectively, and those people tend to not have a whole lot of fun.
Hagan says no matter how smoothly the day goes, security officials will still conduct a thorough review after the event so they can tweak their practices for the next time. Brian Todd, CNN, Washington.
The March for Life is being delayed this year because of the inauguration. It's now set for Friday, January 25th. There will be other changes as well. The rally on the National Mall will be much shorter, only about an hour. Fewer politicians will speak, replaced by pro-life leaders, and there will be huge jumbotron screens everywhere so that everyone will see what's happening. Hundreds of thousands of people are expected to attend. This year marks the 40th anniversary of the Supreme Court decision that okayed abortion. Up next, the credit card mess is now costing the Vatican. Details next on Currents. The freeze on credit cards and all other electronic banking activity is now costing the Vatican about $40,000 a day. The Central Bank of Italy imposed a suspension New Year's Day over concerns the church is not doing enough to stop money laundering. Vatican officials are searching for ways to resume the electronic transactions. Meantime, the Vatican is preparing a Mass manual, something new. It is designed to help priests celebrate Mass properly and the faithful participate better. The manual is expected to be released this summer. And today at St. Peter's Square, a farm under heaven. That's what the Vatican is calling today's exhibition of farm animals at the square as the church celebrates the feast of St. Anthony, the patron and protector of animals. Cardinal Angelo Camastri, the Pope's Vicar General, was there to bless the animals, horses, cows, goats, and more. A Mass for farmers and their families was celebrated at the Basilica. And as is the tradition, pet owners were invited to bring their dogs and cats for a free checkup from the veterinarians who were also there. Now we turn to our School of the Week. St. Patrick's School in Bay Ridge is 150 years old, and the students and teachers know that love is to be shared inside and outside the school's halls.
St. Patrick's believes in educating the whole child. It isn't just the academics. We do the personal, the values. It's a value-based education. It's a Christian faith. So we do the whole thing as opposed to just the academics.
One very important thing for all children is to feel connected, to feel part of something. It translates into emotional health, into social growth, and certainly into academic success. So the fact that our students know that they are part of this very strong, positive community is a very important thing for their growth and development.
And they know that you love them. So when somebody knows that you love them, they want to rise to your expectations.
The kids, the parents are very invested in their children's future, and I think that's very important that what we're putting out, they're taking home with them and trying to do the best for their kids. So it's a good partnership.
Our parishioners are wonderfully supportive of our school, both financially, in terms of tuition assistance, and just in terms of their interest in everything that goes on in the school. The parish has a wonderful St. Vincent de Paul Society chapter, and every child in St. Patrick's School is a member of the Junior St. Vincent de Paul Society. As a result of Hurricane Sandy, we initially welcomed 50 students to St. Patrick's. We have a wonderful faculty, and we have wonderful parents. So we were prepared that Monday morning. Members from our sports program were here to welcome the families. Our pastor, Monsignor Nagel, was present. Our guidance counselor was here, and many of our parent volunteers.
Religion is an aspect that we talk about, and it's just not when we have our religion book open in our classroom. Religion is something that we use, whether we're talking about math, whether we're talking about science, how we interact with one another, how we behave.
We do teach in the tradition of the Dominican sisters and carry on their charism in our school. We do it with our commitment to service, our commitment to community, our commitment to prayer. All of those very important things are part of the Dominican tradition. We are transitioning from a parish elementary school to a Catholic academy, and it is our 150th anniversary. And it's very fitting that this is the year that we are transitioning, because the academy model is the future of Catholic education. So it's fitting as we move into our next 150 years that we do so in the new model of an academy.
I think that to be part of a school that's been around for 150 years, it means that we have to be doing something right.
You know, I've been here a long time, and I'm starting to see students that I've had, their kids are coming here, and I have them in my class. I can't tell you how delightful that is. It really is.
Up next, Obamacare problems for babies. The story as Currents continues after the break. Saying Obamacare is like fascism. The co-founder and current boss of Whole Foods Market renewed his criticism of the president's health law during an interview with National Public Radio recently. Previously, John Mackey said Obamacare was like socialism. Then he admitted that was wrong because under socialism, the government owns the means of production. But when the government doesn't own anything but controls everything, that's fascism, Mr. Mackey said. Now, after receiving a lot of flack, Mackey's switching gears again, saying he regrets using the word fascism. And citing Obamacare, a hospital in Pennsylvania will stop delivering babies at the end of March. The feds are lowering reimbursements under the new law, and the Winber Medical Center can't afford to bring the newborn into the world. No word on how many hospital jobs will be lost. And the Vatican is speaking out tonight about the Lance Armstrong doping scandal. The cyclist now admits he used drugs to win races. The Vatican says the entire professional cycling world is rotten. Meantime, the church is reaching out to Christian athletes such as Tim Tebow and Jeremy Lin to help bring ethics back to pro sports. A Vatican conference is set for spring. Finally tonight, a look at presidential inaugurations gone by. Now, you may want to hold on to your seats. We're going to cover 100 years of history in less than 2 minutes.
No, this is not Carnival Day in Pumpkin Center. It is the day of days in Washington, D.C.
The presidential oath of office.
Here comes the inaugural parade.
Are you prepared to take the oath of office as President of the United States?
I am, sir.
Left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand.
Raise your right hand.
If you will raise your right hand and repeat after me.
After me. I, William Jefferson Clinton, do solemnly swear.
I, Jimmy Carter.
I, Barack Hussein Obama.
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear.
And I will faithfully execute the office.
I will faithfully execute the office.
Execute the office of President to the United States faithfully. Faithfully, the office of President of the United States.
President of the United States faithfully.
Will to the best of my ability.
Best of my ability.
Eisenhower began his second term as leader, not only of America, but all free people.
Preserve,
protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Constitution of the United States.
Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson and the grief-stricken widow with them takes the presidential oath aboard the jet, which brings him, together with the body of the late president, back to Washington.
The flag flies at half-staff. President Truman asks the full Roosevelt cabinet to remain in office.
So help you God. So help me God.
So help me God.
So help me God. So help me God.
So help me God. So help you God. So help me God.
So help me God.
The entire country's behind you, filled with hope and patriotism.
Thank you for joining us. We leave you tonight with more from the farm under heaven, the animals at St. Peter's Square. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for watching and have a good night.